Hello and welcome to a brand new project that's on the workbench, and this is the E-flite Beechcraft D18 twin engine civilian aircraft, brand new release from E-flite, and wow, this thing is absolutely a stunner, right? 1.5 meter wingspan, detachable outer wing panels, navigation lights, counter-rotating props, flaps, retracts. It's got the lights installed on it, the smart ESC, safe AS3X. I mean, literally, it is fully equipped from the factory. An absolutely beautiful, iconic aircraft, right? I mean, this thing was designed in the 1930s, and you can still see them flying today at air shows. They're on display. They're in movies. If you guys have seen Ford versus Ferrari, you'll see that Carroll Shelby landed in a Beechcraft D18 with some Ford execs. Of course, Carroll Shelby was a pilot in the Army Air Force, so he knew what he was doing, handling that Beechcraft around in the air. If you're familiar with the Amazon show The Grand Tour, you'll recognize the D18 from the introduction of that show, and it's been in movies, it's been in TV shows, it's been in Miami Vice. Like I said, the plane, when you really start to look at it, it is in so many places. It's an iconic aircraft. It was primarily designed as a civilian, like an airliner, basically, like a miniature, like a small version of like the DC-3. So its roots are civilian. But it also saw a lot of action in World War II and in military applications, and then been used in the military, ever since. Really probably until the 1970s when it was finally retired. The U.S. Army Air Force flew these as designated C-45s. It was a cargo plane, stripped of all the niceties of a civilian airliner, and used to haul equipment, used to haul people around. They saw a lot of use in the early days of the Pacific War in the Philippines. The Navy also flew these aircraft as well as different types of roles: transport aircraft, reconnaissance trainers, navigation trainer aircraft. Both the Army and Navy had, the Army had a bombardier training version, which they chopped the nose off and put a big glass nose on it. It kind of looked like if a B-17 nose got grafted onto the Beechcraft here, and they use that for bombardier training, and they put bomb bay that held practice bombs in it. So the plane has been just in an incredible, versatile airframe over the years, and E-flite has done an absolutely fantastic job capturing the entire essence of the aircraft and scaling it down in this beautiful 1.5 meter aircraft. As you can see, it's painted up in a very attractive civilian scale, right? So it's the silver to replicate the bare natural aluminum that so many of the civilian ones were. The paint scheme on it, very reminiscent of a 1930s, 40s, 50s vintage scheme. It's got the N registration numbers on it. Just an absolutely beautiful aircraft, right? They really captured that look of that civilian aircraft. But as I just mentioned, this thing has got so much more to it than just being a civilian airliner. It's also used in aerobatics. If you guys have been to air shows, you'll see there's a black and red one flown by Matt Yonkin that does some absolutely incredible aerobatics with it. But if you know me, most of my stuff is Warbird related, right? It's World War II related, and so the Beech D18 in civilian scheme really doesn't fit my hangar, even though I have to say it looks beautiful out of the box. It shows up fantastic in the air, right? I've flown it in cloudy days and sunny days, and this scheme really shows up nice. But I kind of like that military scheme, and so that opened the door to say, all right, well, what if I was to repaint one of these and do it kind of in a military version? And there's a couple different ways I could have done that, right? There's the U.S. Army Air Force C-45s, which were olive drab and neutral gray, OD on the top, neutral gray on the bottom. That was definitely an option. The British also flew these. There's actually one that's yellow on the bottom with invasion stripes, so that was an option. There's natural bare aluminum silver U.S. Army Air Force version as well. But at Oshkosh this year, I had a chance to look at a number of Beech model D18s on display, and both civilian and military. And the one that I just absolutely fell in love with was a U.S. Navy SNB 2 model in the dark blue, intermediate blue, and white paint scheme. And I think that's one of my all-time favorite schemes. My Corsair's painted up in that scheme. My Hellcat's painted up in that scheme. I just love how that aircraft looks. And when there was one flying around at Oshkosh, I instantly knew that that's the plane that I want to replicate. The plane is currently flown by the Indiana Confederate Air Force. It's based out of Kokomo. And during World War II, it was designated an SNB-2. It was a trainer aircraft for reconnaissance as well as navigation. It was stationed in Hawaii during the war. And I think, to me, it just looks like an absolutely gorgeous aircraft in those colors. And since it matches my Corsair from that same time period, I've decided that I'm going to take this airplane here and I'm going to turn it into a Navy SNB from the summer of 1943, based in Oahu, Hawaii. And I'm going to take all of you on a journey on actually learning how to refinish this aircraft with a brand new paint scheme. Going to detail up the cockpit, going to detail up the engines, going to really change the entire look of this aircraft and try to replicate the look of that U.S. Navy SNB. And along the way, I hope that you guys will learn some new tricks, some new techniques. I'm going to be learning some new tricks of my own because normally I would use CAD to design a lot of the piece parts for it and then 3D print them, but I don't have access to CAD anymore. So a lot of the interior details that I'm going to do to this particular aircraft, I'm going to have to fabricate out of wood, foam, plastic, things I have around the house. I'm going to try to turn this thing into a very detailed D18 or SNB, as the Navy would have called it, with not using too many 3D printed parts other than what's already available today. And thankfully, there's guys out there designing 3D printed parts for it, so hopefully I'll be able to take advantage of that. But I haven't seen any for the interior yet, so it will get a lot of updates to it, and I'm very excited to see how this is definitely going to come together. And I'm going to take all of you along for the ride. So you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, BRGT350. That's where the videos will be posted. But on Fly RC Nation, see I got my RC Nation hat on here, representing that. The Fly RC Nation website, I will be making chaptered posts on videos, posting pictures, and doing even more write-ups on the transformation of this aircraft from a civilian D18 to the U.S. Navy SNB. So if you have not registered for RC Nation, by all means get out there and do so and follow along on this project as I take this aircraft and completely redo it. And then along the way, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below on the YouTube video, obviously, but interact with me directly on RC Nation, and I'll be able to help out and answer a lot of questions along the way and share a lot of the things that I have learned about how to convert this beautiful airplane into something a little bit more military. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started on the modification process, shall we?